I still remember the exact moment my heart sank. The sun was shining brightly over the shooting range, and families were gathering for the annual community competition. It was one of those weekends everyone looked forward to all year. I stood beside my older brother, Ryan, feeling both nervous and excited. Ever since I was a little girl, I had admired him. He was confident and popular. The kind of person who always seemed to know exactly what he was doing. Growing up, I followed him everywhere. If he played basketball, I wanted to play basketball. If he learned fishing, I wanted to learn fishing, and when he became interested in target shooting, I wanted to learn that too. But Ryan never liked sharing that interest with me. That morning, as I adjusted my ear protection and prepared to step toward the practice lane, he laughed, not a friendly laugh, the kind that makes everyone around you look. "It's not for girls," he said. Several people nearby chuckled. My face burned with embarrassment. I forced a smile, pretending his words didn't hurt, but inside, something cracked, because it wasn't the first time. For years, Ryan had treated me like I wasn't capable. Whenever I tried something challenging, he found a way to remind me that I didn't belong, and somehow, I always believed him. I spent most of my life standing in his shadow, watching him win, watching people praise him, watching him become the person everyone admired. Meanwhile, I became the quiet sister nobody noticed. But what Ryan didn't know that day was that I had been practicing for months, every weekend, every spare afternoon, while he assumed I was shopping, hanging out with friends, or doing anything except shooting. I was training. I wasn't trying to compete with him. I simply loved the sport, the focus, the discipline, the feeling of improving little by little. Still, I kept it a secret. Part of me wanted to avoid criticism. Part of me wanted to prove myself. When the moment finally came, AS competitors lined up for the event. Ryan confidently walked toward his lane. Everyone expected him to win, including him, and honestly, I expected him to win too. But what I didn't know that day was that a single sentence, "It's not for girls," would become the biggest mistake he ever made, because before the competition ended, everything was about to change, and for the first time in my life, I would no longer be standing in anyone's shadow. The competition began. One by one, participants took their turns. Ryan performed exactly as everyone expected. His shots were accurate, consistent. People nodded with approval. After every round, my parents smiled proudly from the sidelines. I could hear whispers. "Ryan's going to win again. He's incredible. He always dominates these events." I tried to focus on my own performance, but every compliment aimed at him reminded me of years spent feeling invisible. Then my turn came. As I stepped forward, I felt dozens of eyes watching me. Some looked curious, others looked doubtful, and a few were already expecting me to fail. My hands trembled slightly. I took a deep breath, focused on the target, and fired. The first shot landed perfectly. A few eyebrows lifted. I ignored them. I fired again, and again, and again. Each shot landed almost exactly where I wanted. The crowd became quieter. Then came the whispers. People who had ignored me moments earlier were suddenly paying attention. Ryan noticed too. I saw him staring from across the range. His confident smile had disappeared. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. When the first round ended, the scores were announced. I was leading by a narrow margin, but I was leading. The silence on Ryan's face said everything. Afterward, he approached me. "You got lucky," he said. I laughed nervously, but he wasn't joking. "You won't keep that up." His words hit harder than I expected, not because they were mean, but because I realized something. He wasn't rooting for me. He never had been. For years, I thought his teasing was harmless brother-sister stuff, but standing there, I finally saw the truth. He didn't want me to succeed, because my success threatened the image he had built for himself. That realization hurt more than any insult, yet strangely, it also freed me. I stopped seeking his approval, stopped hoping he'd support me, stopped worrying about what he thought, and suddenly, I felt stronger. Round after round, I stayed focused. The more pressure increased, the calmer I became. Meanwhile, Ryan grew frustrated. His mistakes started showing. Small mistakes, then bigger ones. For the first time, he wasn't competing against everyone else. He was competing against his own pride, and pride is a difficult opponent to defeat. By the final round, the entire crowd was watching us, the defending champion, and the quiet sister nobody expected. Everything came down to a handful of shots. The atmosphere felt electric. I could hear my heartbeat. I could feel every breath, and I knew this wasn't just about a competition anymore. It was about proving something to myself, that I belonged, that I was capable, that nobody gets to decide my limits except me. Then the final targets appeared, and everything came down to one last moment. The range fell completely silent. I lifted the rifle up, focused, breathed slowly, and squeezed the trigger. One shot, perfect. The next shot landed almost on top of the first, then another, and another, until all 5 rounds formed an incredibly tight grouping. The crowd gasped. A few seconds later, applause erupted, louder than anything I had ever heard. People stood, cheered, pointed toward the target. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and neither could Ryan. When the final scores appeared, my name stood at the top. That I had won. For a moment, everything felt unreal. The little girl who spent years doubting herself, the girl who always stood behind her brother, the girl who was told she didn't belong, she was gone. Standing there was someone new, someone confident. Someone who finally believed in herself. The people congratulated me. I looked toward Ryan. He avoided eye contact at first, then slowly walked over. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he sighed. I was wrong. 3 simple words, words I never expected to hear. I shouldn't have said those things. His voice sounded genuine, not forced, not defensive, just honest, and surprisingly, that mattered more than winning, because revenge wasn't watching him fail. It wasn't humiliating him. It wasn't making him feel the pain I felt. The real victory was proving that his opinion no longer controlled my life. That day taught me something important. Sometimes the people who doubt us the most are the ones closest to us. Their words can hurt, their criticism can stay with us for years, but their doubts do not define our future. Only we can do that. Ryan and I eventually repaired our relationship, not overnight, but little by little, and years later, whenever someone says certain things aren't meant for girls, I simply smile, because I remember that competition, I remember that target. And I remember the lesson that changed my life forever. Never let someone else's limits become your own, because the moment you stop seeking permission to succeed, is the moment you truly begin to shine. Thanks for watching.